Hi, this is Starkey Sowers. Welcome again to another Plus Program training series. Today's topic is mushroom wisdom, and this is part 2. So let's do a little bit of review, so to speak, on part 1 for those of you that maybe didn't get the ability to see it. So when we're thinking about mushrooms, typically we have a tendency to think, well, I know everything about them. And ultimately, when we look at mushrooms, it's kind of some fun history as well as some knowledge about it. So number one, when we look at mushrooms, they are actually a fungus. We typically classify them as a vegetable when it comes to our United States culture, so to speak, but they are actually a fungus. And they actually grow underneath the ground. And then what we actually see is a fruiting body, so to speak, which we actually call the mushroom itself. All right, so with that said, what is the groundwork, so to speak, is known as the mycelium. And mycelium literally is like little tubular networks. It's like a root system that literally comes out through like forest areas as well as like maybe your lawn. And ultimately what that does is actually goes out, gathers nutrients and brings nutrients. It actually can share nutrients. One of the other things that mycelium does actually takes toxic compounds and actually breaks them down and renders them into substances that the plant can actually use, actually going through a form, what we call biotransformation, taking something that's toxic, breaking it down and making it actually usable. All right, so with that said, there's some great nutrients in mushrooms. First of all, very high in protein, as well as B1, B2, B3, folic acid, as well as biotin, and also with the minerals such as selenium and iron, calcium, phosphorus, and potassium, definitely making mushrooms nutritious, no question about it. Definitely a food that's been hunted and gathered for years and centuries. At the same time, it was considered only to be eaten by a lot of cultures by royalty, meaning that only royalty got to eat them. And one of the reasons why is they were considered superhuman foods or foods that created superhuman situations. And I think you're actually going to see that at the end of this. There's kind of a cool mushroom that we're going to talk about that has a lot of attributes as far as like strength and energy and things of that nature. All right, so couple thoughts. When we look at medicinal mushrooms, the top 4 that we're going to talk about is shiitake, as well as maitake, as well as reishi and cordyceps. When we look at the literature, literally tens of thousands of years ago, there's been a lot of literature that has literally culminated throughout the years, and current research on mushrooms has actually been exploding, which is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people have a lot of interest when it comes to mushrooms. All right, so let's look at a couple different types of mushrooms. When we look at mushrooms, the first one that comes to list is shiitake. It's probably the first mushroom that literally kind of gained the popularity, so to speak, in so many different areas. One thing about shiitake is shiitake actually has 2 ingredients. First of all, it's called lentinan as well as aridinine. It's a little bit of a tongue twister there. And what happens with those particular compounds is we've kind of isolated those and actually said, hey, these are the compounds that actually seem to be doing a lot of the work of the particular mushroom when it comes to the human body. So a couple of thoughts. Number one, when we look at shiitake, the compounds actually help to stimulate an immune response. And that's where shiitake mushrooms have been so popular for so long, is they actually stimulate the immune response and help the body to actually be able to fight off infections and things of that nature. Additionally, when we look at it, there's some compounds that actually have been used for cancer research. So right away, don't be thinking, oh, wow, I'll use shiitake mushroom instead of cancer therapies. Definitely no. When it looks at shiitake mushroom, we actually have to note a couple of things. Number one, when they're doing the experimental things that they've been doing, a lot of it has been done with injectable extracts. So that's a lot different than you actually consuming them. And it's also research that's been done a lot on animals, not necessarily on humans. But with that said, when we look at this particular compounds that are in shiitake mushrooms, we actually see some great activities. First of all, number one, shiitake actually has some not only immune stimulating properties, but it also seems to help with individuals that maybe have had some type of viral complications such as hepatitis and things of that nature. All right, so the next particular mushroom is what we call maitake mushrooms. Dr. Nan out of Japan has literally been researching it since the 1970s. When we look at maitake, a couple unique things. Number one, the active compounds are beta-1,4 and beta-1,6 glucans. And these particular glucans have actually been noted in a couple of things. Number one, they actually seem to help in the area of the bone marrow, kind of nourishing the bone marrow, kind of stimulating the body and regulating the body's production of white and red blood cells. The other thing we actually see is actually a little bit of cholesterol inhibition action in the liver, seems to prevent the body from building up too much cholesterol, as well as many other different things. And there's obviously been some cancer research done by Dr. Namba as well too, but this particular research, once again, a lot of it is animal models, and there's more research that's continuing because of it. All right, one thing to remember about maitakes is the defract mushrooms. When you buy it, you want the defractionated in there because that's the active compound that makes it happen. Next on the list, reishi. Reishi is actually a Chinese herbal tonic. It can be used for months at a time. One thing to remember about maitake as well as shiitake, same thing, those are considered Chinese tonic herbs. They can be used for months at a time, especially like during colds and flus. But when we look at reishi, it's actually called Ganoderma. It can be used on a regular basis, a little bit more so than some of the other different mushrooms. And one of the things it's actually considered for is wisdom. It actually helps increase mental alertness, things of that nature. The other thing about reishi is they grow in all sorts of different types of compounds, and these triterpene compounds give all sorts of cool colors. It can be like greens and purples and reds and all sorts of neat things, making reishi kind of a really like eye-appealing mushroom to find. What's unique about a lot of these particular ones, including reishi, is they actually grow on dead wood substances, and those are kind of the areas that they'll take off. Finally, we look at cordyceps, and this definitely is the one that would be the gift of the gods. When we look at cordyceps, a couple unique things. In 1992, in the Olympic Games, we actually saw that a lot of Chinese finally were starting to get very active in the Olympic community, and a lot of their endurance athletes, their marathon runners, as well as their swimmers and their weightlifters, were all using cordyceps. And ultimately, there was a lot of research that was done prior to the Olympics showing that it actually reduced times, helped with energy, endurance, and stamina, making it the definite pre-workout choice for so many different athletes. The Olympic committee actually looked at this and said, hey, wait a minute, this almost is like an edge, like ephedrine. What we want to do is look into it, almost considered it making it obliterated or an illegal substance at that particular time. Later on, they went to say, hey, it's healthy and it actually doesn't seem to cause any complications, and we'll release it off the banned substance list. One thing about cordyceps for sure, definitely great for endurance and stamina. One thing to remember about cordyceps, it literally grows on the worm castings or worm dung or worm crap, so to speak, and literally grows from that. So making it kind of a very unique type of mushroom with a lot of attributes, making it very, very aggressive in the bodybuilding as well as the weightlifting and also the athletic world. A couple things, the CS4 extract sold by a lot of different manufacturers has been researched extensively. So you might want to look for that CS4, making it probably one of the best cordyceps that's out on the market. And there is a lot of wild cordyceps as well too. Some of the prices on it can definitely go up. Some prices go up to literally $2,000 for like a gram or so. So that's some pretty expensive stuff. All right, so that kind of wraps up this series, gives you a little bit of information about some medicinal mushrooms and their uses, as well as some basically culinary mushrooms as well. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. Appreciate you watching another Plus Program training video.